All right.
Well, welcome everyone. This is Alan Lusk. I'm a member of the board of the Friends of Hagermen Wildlife Refuge, and I'm hosting today's Zoom meeting on bluebirds. And Patricia Crane, part of our communication team, is going to post in the chat how you can see a link to our new website and also how you can join and become a member. That'll get you on the email list so you can get our monthly newsletters. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it to Susan Knowles, and she's going to introduce our speaker today.
Hello, John. So good to see you today.
You too, Susan.
John got his bachelor's degree from the University of Arkansas in electronic engineering. He then got his master's at Southeastern in aerospace administration. He was a pilot in the Air Force and then flew for Delta Airlines. He then became an assistant professor at Southeastern. He's been a busy guy. He's been volunteering out at the refuge for 5 years. He got elected to the board and took over the position of the Bluebird Nest Box chair. Please welcome John.
Well, thanks, Susan. Appreciate that introduction. I hope everybody has the slideshow on their computer. I've got a dual monitor system here, so if you see me looking sideways, they're kind of spaced out a little bit. It's basically, I'm watching participants as well as the presentation. I've been involved with the Nest Box Committee for about 2 years now, and a lot to learn. Previous people have really put the Nest Box program in a really good shape, and that's basically where I'm at on this presentation. I am not an ornithologist, but I do have an expert online today, and that would be Dr. Wayne Meyer. And we'll just cruise through this. We'll have questions at various points, and then at the end, certainly some more questions. And we're asking you to put the questions on chat, and Alan Lusk will then sort those out, and we'll try to get questions answered. Anyway, I've got another helper, Bert Garcia. He's been on the Bluebird Nest Box Committee as a member for a long time, 2011, etc. And so he's going to chime in when we need some critical information or nice to know stuff. This whole presentation was done mostly by Kathy Whaley. She's our Hagermen Wildlife Refuge manager, very knowledgeable about bluebirds. And this is a long presentation, so I will rifle through these slides. They're going to be recorded, and if you get on our Friends of Hagermen website, those recordings will have a link, and you may certainly learn more of whatever you need to know about bluebirds and setting up trails, etc. That being said, we will move on to some of the references here that Kathy used and I use. Several big time websites. The Cornell Lab of Ornithology is where our data goes from the monitoring, and there's several more websites that are giving great information. I'm going to hit one of these websites, the Cornell Lab, in just a few moments. Getting on to the bluebirds, we've got 3 species. Basically, this program is all about the eastern bluebird, which we have at Hagermen. The western bluebird and mountain bluebird, you can see the slide presentation there, where their habitat happens year-round, summer, winter, and the migration. Eastern bluebird, typically a large area of the US in Mexico on to South America. So very popular bird, it would seem like. Western bluebird, you can see that habitat, and the mountain bluebird. Just rifling through these as quickly as we can. Getting to the general biology, and I'm certainly somebody is not muted. Alan Gregory. Okay. Anyway, length 6 to 8 inches. A lot of it's not going to mean a lot to you. Just got it on there to perching birds, passerines. Found that out. A lot of this fossil evidence back to the late Pleistocene epoch, 2.5 million. Bird's been around a long time, member of the thrush family. Social but territorial. I can vouch for that. I know Bert probably can too. When these birds are nesting and the babies are in there, they tend to dive bomb you when you get close rather abruptly, just like a mockingbird. It's kind of interesting. I'm going to stop this share and we're going to go to the ornithology website. And this is an ornithology website, Cornell Lab ornithology website, just to give you an idea. This will bring back memories, Wayne, as we listen to the songs of an eastern bluebird. You can read about it here. It's a low pitch warbling song, 1 to 3 short notes. I'm going to stop that one. There's one that's a little bit louder, slightly different. And I hope you all can hear that. I'm going to stop that share. That website has links on this presentation, and I would say is well worth your time if you need to find out more information on these all kinds of birds, not just bluebirds. It's huge website. Let me get back here. And we have a female, we have a male. Notice the coloring difference. And that's about all I have to say about that. Blue, the males are strikingly more blue. Bluebirds population, I'm going to get the, there we go. I'm going to get my bluebird population in the US was healthy before the mid 1800s, 60 to 70% decline by the 1970s. And of course, this is a long time ago, obviously. Why? Well, loss of suitable habitat, pesticide use, killing insects that birds eat, competition with house sparrows, European darlings. They like to nest in bluebird boxes. Metal fence posts replaced by wood posts. A lot of things going on historically used as nesting cavities. And true or false, significant climate events can have a very significant impact on the bluebird populations. Obviously true. Extremely cold winters can have a major impact. Look at 67, 76, 77, 78, 60% of US population died. Some areas like Tennessee lost closer to 90%. I put some data in here that Kathy didn't have in North Texas, and you guys all, most of you who live in North Texas or anywhere in Texas, remember the February big time freeze. And this is 19 fledging, about 147 bluebirds. Talk about that a little bit later as well. 2020, nice 136. 2021, we only fledged 41 bluebirds. It was drastic reduction in bluebird population. In fact, I went out to the box on the Harris Creek Trail. I inspected every box on the Harris Creek Trail and every box on the Roush Trail. One box only had 13 adult bluebirds frozen to death. 13. Every other box was empty. Kind of amazing. What triggered me to do that was my own trail here at my pasture. I had a box with 5 that died. And I said, I better get out to Hagermen and we'll see what we've got going there. Yep. And I used Kathy Whaley's emails to publish to my committee. She thinks, and she's seen this in Tennessee, she thinks it'll take 4 to 5 years for our bluebird population to get back. But a lot of trails and increasing. This is the 60s. Bluebird box trails were first put in place, 78, 79. We started getting North American Bluebird Society organized, U.S. Fish and Wildlife breeding bird surveys. We started getting data. Okay, eastern bluebirds were very rare in many areas, Midwest and East, rare in other areas, and uncommon. So in the 80s and 90s, blue box trails, and there's some pictures here of the blue box trails. I'll give you some more pictures in a minute of Hagerman's, became really popular, and they've made a good comeback. So the establishment of these trails, populations average about 2% per year, increasing, even some years that had the drastic declines, like 2021. Partners in Flight, another organization, current global breeding population at 23 million. That data may be old. Okay, I don't have the current data, but a lot more birds than we used to have. Where do you find bluebirds? Well, open rural country, meadows, pastures, backyards, golf courses, parks, sitting on power lines or fences, perched in a tree. They're a perching bird. Okay, and that's why sometimes you can really get a good picture. What do they have in common? Open space. And I've got a 20-acre pasture and have nice open space. We've had good luck with our trail, just 8 boxes, but anyway. But this is where you need to think about locating bluebird nest boxes if you have that inclination. Get some open space. Now, I would say we don't have all open space at Hagermen. We've got some places that are tree lined and still produce bluebirds nesting. How do they survive? Food, water, shelter, space. Interesting. Most birds need, obviously, food. These birds tend to eat a lot of insects, primarily, about 80% of their diet in the spring and summer. And of course, that's when we're monitoring spring and summer. So the insects are great. In winter, they like the berries. Lots of places that pokeweed, juniper, blackberries. I've got cedar trees, lots of berries there. On occasion, shrews, snakes, lizards, tree frogs. Haven't seen much of that, but on occasion. I would say these insects and berries are their primary. They're ground brush foragers. They catch insects in midair. They land on bushes or trees, fruit and berries, and they often just perch and wait for the movement, jump or glide. Water, and this comes into our bluebird population. We have water out at Hagermen all over the place, sometimes way too much. The flooding is not what we like, but there's plenty of water. If you don't have water, get a bird bath. You can attract birds of all sorts, not just bluebirds. Shelter, they're a nesting. Bluebirds are a nesting, cavity nester. Natural cavities, you can see a fence post, a tree, boxes and cavities. Often use brushy areas for shelter from cold and storms. We have some really brushy areas at Hagermen that's grown up with the locust trees. And I mean, the locust trees have those big, long needles and thorns. very dangerous to walk into, but these birds do have some winter shelter out there. The Peterson box, we have Peterson boxes. This is the type of nest boxes, and this is what a lot more of this presentation is going to be, just to show you how and what's going on with a trail and nest boxes. Rouse Trail, Harris Creek Trail. We have 2 trails. We got 46 boxes. There's 15 on the Rouse Trail. It's a straight line out there. Some of that's in the woods. A lot of it isn't. And then the Harris Creek Trail, we've got 31 boxes. The Carl Little nest boxes and the Peterson boxes are both used, and you can see the shape and the difference from the Peterson box. Peterson box is bigger, it's heavier. It tends to withstand the wind a little bit better, I would say. You'll see a post, 4x4 post on this particular nest box. We're using steel conduit as a post for our nest boxes, for both styles of nest boxing. I'll show you some of that in a moment. Alan, any questions? Alan, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Any questions yet?
We had one earlier asking about if the Bluebirds took advantage of the American beauty berries.
That
Maybe.
I do not have knowledge of. Wayne, what do you think? I would say yes.
I would suspect yes. Purple berries tend to be berries that are going to attract wildlife to eat them rather than, say, white berries, which are poisonous.
Yeah.
So I would guess that American beauty berries might be eaten, but I really don't know.
Okay. Well, I hope that covers some of that. But
Well, and there's another question just came in that was asking about, Becky is asking, which box do the Bluebirds prefer, or do they?
I've had that question many times. I don't know. I swear both boxes have, I'm going to say, equal attraction. I would say the space they're located is definitely more important, that open area.
John, this is Bert Garcia.
Yes.
In my 4 years of chairing the committee, I also did not notice any preference of the birds to the type of box. The preference of the bird seems to be the location of the box. And
Yeah.
often we would move a box 20 feet, a box that was unproductive, move it 20 feet and it would become productive. Why?
Yes,
Bluebird.
I've seen that. Get it out from underneath a tree, get it just into 50 feet away, like he says, and say, get some open space above it, but you're still close to the trees, and that's okay. They like that. They defend their nesting season. They are aggressive. They can forage up to 50, 75 acres. And so space is a big deal. I've shown a little, this is about the only map I have. If you look at the very top of the picture, our visitor center's up here, and we enter the trail coming down through box 29, 56 out here, and the Harris Creek Trail then goes all the way down to the creek, Harris Creek, which is way down here, and stops. And then there's other trails that come back here, and the Harris Creek Trail has a handicap access for these boxes, where right up here, right along Refuge Road as well. So if you're ever out there, this is a nice long trail, and lots of open area and some not so open. And so we've got the habitat, the water, these ponds. So it's a good location for nesting. Harris Creek. Behavior biology. Well, let's go through this a little bit. The breeding behavior. And male bluebirds, they find a nest site, usually begin scouting February, and that's coming up close. And so they'll attract a female by carrying materials in and out of the hole, perching and fluttering their wings. Okay, I'm going to move through this. Typically, the nest site selection is a picture here. Lots of grass primarily seen with these bluebirds. They're very different nesting from some of the other nesting birds. Blue eggs, okay? Even a fence post that's got holes in it, trees with holes, a cavity of some sort. The two particular boxes we're using, and Peterson, Carl Little. You'll notice the Peterson box is bigger, has a front door. I like that. It's a little easier to view sometimes. When we monitor, both boxes have a screw in as you can see, the door can open and we can peer in very carefully. All our monitors go through training to do the monitoring properly, and I'll get into that a little bit. Here's a Peterson box atop a conduit pole. You can see old style poles, and you can see another pole over here. Used to be pounded into the dirt, and that's still okay. It just makes it hard to remove that pole and move it. So I've gone to the last 2 years a ground auger, and a lot of our bigger poles also have an auger, which is easily twisted into the soil or twisted out of the soil if we need to move it. There are places we need to move it for a lot of reasons out at Hagermen. We have a mowing crew. Well, I'll get to that in a moment. Anyway, galvanized hardware, most definitely. Nothing treated, no treated lumber, okay? Hardware clamps also. So the construction of the box and the setup is not that hard. The predator guard, that's what we call this metal stove pipe, and it's ducting, okay, with usually a wooden or metal top, either one screwed in, preventing the pests from getting up to the box. We definitely have ants out at Hagermen, and this is the answer that has been used for a lot of years, and that's tanglefoot. And it's just a paste, castor oil waxes and resins. But this here is a tree, but we put it on these metal poles, about 2 or 3 inches, so that we can capture any of these ants that want to crawl up the pole to the nesting area and do damage. Anyway, works very well. We've got a lot of fire ants on all of our trails. We don't do the trails, but we do that 10-foot to 15-foot area that surrounds every nesting box. So if you can see my pointer, I've got this area around here that can be treated for fire ants. We use Amdro, it's a bait. Now that's not necessarily for protection of the birds. That's protection for the monitors who are stepping on these fire ant mounds. And that's not a fun time. They hurt. So we try to get that tanglefoot with a little strip around the pole underneath the predator guard to cover up. So native birds attempt to perch on a vertical pole. We don't want the birds to get themselves stuck or even into any tanglefoot. And it works well. Very cheap, very cheap. Predator guards on all poles gives you another close-up look of what we're looking at here. These you buy at Lowe's, Home Depot, put the circle, and it's just ducting, okay? It's just ducting. Get it in any hardware store. The old name tags for our name tags, but numbered tags. All of our boxes are numbered. I'll go on for that. Then we get into the Adopt-A-Box program. And Kathy, are you on? Kathy Van Bebber? Okay, I didn't think so. So new signage for all of our adopted boxes. Patricia Crane, I know you're on, and Patricia was a big time starter for the Adopt-A-Box program. And this year, 44 next boxes were made available. We have 43 boxes adopted at $35 each. I hope some of you did that, and I want to thank you very much. This is going to give a real boost to our future boxes. These boxes are 10, 11 years old. The wood is warping. New roofs are the first choice. Poles get bent because we have mowing crews that try to get close to the poles and get too close. But $1,500 this year is going to go a long ways. I can tell you, I bought one piece of cedar lumber, 1 inch by 10 inch, 10 feet long, just to make new roofs. That's a $60 piece of wood, just one piece of wood.
Oh.
And piping, it's all gotten expensive. And I think everybody knows the basic price changes in all areas of construction. So, but anyway, all we do is that $1,500 goes directly to the Nest Box Committee. We make choices, maintenance of the Nest Box program, and this keeps things moving. Our data is then published to the Cornell lab online. And so we are contributing with, I don't know how many other people are donating to Cornell and getting all this data, but it's a big operation. So every sponsor gets a name or a title, or they make up a title, and we've got some pretty original titles. So it's whatever you want. And every nest box is numbered, and this will correspond to the data that goes to Cornell. Okay.
John, if I could just interject real quick.
Yes, you can.
Thank you for the shout out about the nest boxes. I work really hard on it with the data and everything, but I had nothing to do with the beginning of it.
Okay.
I think that was Bert, and I really have no idea who else, but it was already going when I came along.
Well, the committee in some fashion was
Thank you though.
part of that origination.
This is,
And you continued it. Bert, go ahead.
yeah, it wasn't Bert. It existed before I became a part of the committee and chair of the committee. I suspect it was the Mallory's.
And the history was we'd only adopted 20 boxes, and those were pretty competitive to get a box. And there's a lot of people. We have such a great friends of Hagermen board and members, and there's so many that wanted to get a box and didn't. So I just jumped it up, and all it entails for me is making these new 43 name tags. Small price to pay for a large amount of money to rehab these nest boxes, relocate. Okay, thanks for that question, and thanks, Tricia, for chiming in on that. We have
Hey,
a blueprint.
John.
Yes, sir.
Sarah asked if there are any boxes left to be adopted at this point. I think it's closed, but Patricia.
It is closed at this time. Patricia, is that not correct? Yeah.
We could add, it's up to you, actually.
We can
I
add
can
one
add
or
someone
one or
easily,
two.
but
You
it's
can-
pretty
you
much,
can add
no,
one.
never mind. I can't do it because we already took down the website.
Yeah, we did. Okay.
So
There's
Sarah,
always- next year.
next year, and Laurie Shepherd posted out here that Sue and Dick Mallory are the ones that started the Nest Box adoption program.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. Very good. Very
The
good.
nest boxes sell really fast and
Yep.
they go on sale December 1st every year. And if you
Yep.
sign up for the newsletter, and I'll put a link in the chat for that too, then you'll know exactly when it starts and you'll have the link to purchase it.
And I should say, we've gone from just 20 boxes all the way to every box, all 46 boxes. And that money is very welcome. So, because I'm spending it as fast as I can on rehabbing these nest boxes. And it's all good. We're going to have when the Bluebirds come back, we hope we have a good year, and we shall, I hope. Harris Creek Trail, it's a long trail, so we've got a buggy. We call it the Bluebird buggy. I think that's Jack, isn't it? Is that Jack Childs?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's the bird man, along with Wayne. I'll tell you, what a great job, great pictures. But we use that golf cart basically for monitoring because it's a long trail. We use the pickup truck on Rouse Trail, and that's easily done. We take buckets. Each monitor has a bucket full of gear, I should say, spatulas, wire brushes, first aid kits, mirrors, insect repellent, tools, screwdrivers, etc., etc. Pictures, cameras we're not using anymore. We're using our cell phones to take pictures and monitor any of the bird activity in a box. I have found that putting a cell phone into the box and getting a picture, some of these boxes are a little high, getting a picture, the count of birds and eggs just gets more accurate with a nice cell phone picture that you can take out and view. So that's where we're at on that. And I put that out there for anybody that's monitoring boxes. This is the Cornell Nest Watch check data sheet. Very, very thorough. A lot of things go in here. I'm not going to get into this because we're just showing a data sheet that takes a significant commitment from our monitors to get accurate. And that goes the breeding data, excuse me, eggs, live young, dead young, nest status, adult status, whether they're in the area, whether we see them. Anything we can't corroborate, then it'll get rather than a number, it'll be a U. Sometimes the eggs get covered up. Sometimes the babies get covered up. We can't disturb them. And we'll wait for the next week. Every nest box gets a visit once a week, Wednesday or Thursday, every nest box. And that goes typically March through July. August, it is so hot, we have very little activity here at Hagermen in August. Other areas that are cooler might have some. And a picture of a Peterson box and how the door opens. We're very careful not to disturb the nest. A cell phone really works well there. So you don't have to disturb a nest and you can get a picture. And those pictures are then updated with data that go to the Adopt a Box program donors. Once a week, John Van Bebber sends out a bulk email dealing with the photos that are inside your boxes. And you kind of get an idea of, the end of the program and the fledging, and you're participating in such a great program, you Adopt a Box people. Can't say enough about you. Nesting is usually dry grass. We have other nests that are different, but typically 4 to 5 eggs, 1 per day. Female begins incubation after last egg. She comes and goes from the nest, except at night. Average incubation, 12 to 14 days. So we can generally monitor and know when the hatching is about to happen. And then the young birds fledge anywhere from 16 to 18 days after they hatch. Okay. A lot goes on while the female and male feed these birds. There's all kinds of, I'm not going to get into the whole list here, but the egg laying, the incubating, the hatching, and the older chicks all get pretty nice care from the mom and dad. Yeah. 95% are blue. That's a good thing. Bluebirds lay blue eggs. I like that. 5% white. Quite honestly, I've not seen white eggs out at Hagermen, but then again, I haven't been on the committee that long. Doesn't matter. We have sheets and we have a manual for our monitors so they can compare nesting materials and egg materials and everything else to determine what species is in the box. We're going to get to that in just a moment. Incubation, female sitting on a nest. That's a rare picture, I'll tell you, to be able to get that picture with a female on the nest. Didn't come That didn't come from me by any means. I don't know where Kathy got that. Anyway, probably on the website. Okay, hatching day. That's what they look like. And this is basically pictures off the website. So you can see they are naked. It's not, anyway, brand new bird. And they grow a little fuzz. And I've got, I think, going on to early on day one, eggs are hatching. This is pretty cool. This makes your monitoring fun. There's no doubt about it when you see this stuff happening. Here we go with the eggs, more. And new birds. Notice the fuzz. Day 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the mouths are open and mom and dad are bringing food, primarily worms, insects. Both parents feed the hatchlings. Very interesting. If you have a box in your backyard, you can sit there and just watch when those babies are growing. Now, you don't want to open the box while they're let mom feed them, but watching the parents go to and from that nest box with lots of insects and food. Pretty fascinating. House cleaning, adults remove the droppings left by the young. Okay. Notice this is kind of an older box, but still works. I will point out the entry to all of our Bluebird boxes are specifically 1.5 inches. And that's to keep out the other bigger birds. However, we do have some species that like these nest boxes. I'll get to that in a moment. Day 10, the feathers are coming out. Day 12, lots of feathers. This gets hard to count the birds because they're in a small box and making sure you've still got the right number of birds. So the data, you look back and, oh, we had 5. We have 5 bluebirds last week, and now I only see 4. Well, you may have one that's buried under the other brothers and sisters. So anyway, that's just part of the fun in monitoring. Day 13, 14, notice we've got some blue coloring now on the feathers and ready to fledge. This is where we kind of back off away from the boxes a little bit when it's close to fledging, because we simply don't want any of these birds to fall out before they're not ready. And Bert, I think you described last year how these youngsters peek their head out, peek it back in, peek their head out. This goes on. This could go on for an hour or more, and then all of a sudden they find a tree to make a maiden flight.
John, very briefly, yes, it is fun to watch them, what I call getting their little courage up to fledge. But
Yeah.
also another point to be made here is that's one of the reasons, at least I understand, Wayne can correct me if I'm wrong, why you want trees nearby is the young ones are trying to figure out if they can make it to a nearby tree.
Yep.
That's another very interesting phenomenon to watch.
Yes, it is. That's a good point. And here's some information about these young birds. And you can see that picture down there peeking out. Okay. Parents lure the fledglings to nearby cover, usually vegetation or those tree limbs. And they're going to stay with their parents until next spring at that point. And they often encourage to go elsewhere. Then, well, they will often breed their first spring season. On average, 83% of eggs laid will hatch. 75 to 90% will fledge the nest cavity. 40 to 50% will survive the first year. I think this might apply to a lot of 1-year-old birds. That first year is critical. And Wayne, I see you nodding your head. I'm taking that from watching your videos. So 40 to 50% of those will survive the next year. So that's kind of how it works. Juvenile birds, just pictures, just to let you know, see the different coloring. These are fledged birds that are out and about, learning how to go find insects, etc. There's one splashing in the bird bath. They often bring them to water source to drink. The adults do that once they fledge. Parents are teaching them where water is. Both parents continue feeding 3 to 4 weeks, learn to forage on their own. Birds fledged at Hagermen. And this is the 2 trails, 46 boxes. I think you can see what we have, the data, 2019, really nice, good year, 447 bluebirds flying, brand new bluebirds fledged. 2020, not bad, 136 bluebirds. Where our past history I looked at, we're averaging 140 bluebirds fledging basically the past 10 years. Last year, we had a freeze, big time freeze all over Texas. It was a horrible event for a lot of other species as well as bluebirds. And here at Hagermen, we only had 41 birds fledge. Very disappointing for all of us monitors, but they will come back because we've got a lot of bluebird trails being made, and we're doing the bluebird trail at Hagermen and a lot of other people. Some other data, I don't know, February report of 2000, just to let you see the chickadee, Carolina wren, titmouse, all have a liking for bluebird boxes. Notice we don't have sparrows on there because we take sparrow nests out. These others, if they lay eggs, we're certainly not going to throw them out. And you can see the various eggs from March, April, May, June, July, bluebirds. There wasn't many. The eggs laid versus, and then the fledgling, the bluebird fledglings, I put in yellow, and our fledged bluebirds, we had 0 in March last year, 0. And because we just come off that February huge record freeze. So it took, and then April, we only had 5 birds fledged, and you can see the data goes on. Chickadees are rather prolific. It looks like they, and the Carolina wrens both have a decent fledging, 13 chickadees, 18 Carolina wrens. Titmouse, we didn't have any. That doesn't mean there wasn't any, but we just possibly didn't monitor the species properly. But anyway.
Ron, this is a slight point to be made here, and this is according to Jack Childs, which you noted earlier is a bird expert along with Wayne Meyer. But Jack told me once that bluebirds are particularly susceptible to cold weather, more than other birds, and thus we lost a lot of them.
That I agree with, and I've got a slide that details that just slightly. Excellent point, though. This is data. Yes, Alan, got a question?
Yeah, somebody was, Sarah was making a comment that she'd read that females lay multiple broods per year, with each brood having 1 less egg laid per brood. Kind of counting down maybe to 1 egg or so in the last brood.
I have read that they do have multiple broods. Wayne, is that?
They will lay a brood. When those hatch, the male takes care of the fledglings, and the female starts laying a second set of eggs. And it really just depends on how much food she has available, what the weather's like, what the conditions are.
Sure.
The 1 less egg a time, no, that doesn't bear out.
Okay.
But they will often lay a smaller second brood.
Okay. And that's good info. That's pretty logical as well. Food, water available, healthy birds. There you go.
Well, and Shervanan is asking that, she was interested, bluebirds up north survive the harsh winters, which are common, but not down here in Texas. I don't know if there's any truth to eastern bluebirds being more adapted to the cold.
Wayne?
They're migratory.
Yeah.
So they leave up north and come down here. And so actually, no, they're not any more cold adapted. They just get the heck out of Dodge and come down to warmer areas. So when we do our Christmas bird count, we get 5 to 10 times as many bluebirds as we would find in the summertime.
Yeah, interesting point. Not to mention, that's the reason February and the record cold, just even though they migrated, they got hit bad. I would say all birds got hit somewhat. I saw that when I went out to Hagermen on the trails. I would see the remains or the carcasses of various birds on the trail because the predators, the coyotes, foxes, everything else was eating these dead birds or bringing them to the trail. The vultures, everything. You could see the remains of several, not bluebirds necessarily, but all kinds of other birds that did not survive, and there were food for the predators. Yeah, it's an interesting cycle of life, but that's how it works. Well, anyway, these are the other birds that are species that we typically record if needed, and but we're specifically in 2010 to 2020. That's 10 years, and Hagermen had a number of over 1,500 eastern bluebirds fledged in 10 years. Divide that up, that's 150 birds per year, so that's not bad. And so we suffered in 2021, but scientists say they'll be back. And dealing with the pests, the house sparrow, that's typically we remove the house sparrow nest. Fire ants, talked about that, on the ground. Now that predator is more dangerous to the monitors, I think, possibly, but not more dangerous, but more of a problem for the monitors, which get up there. A blowfly and the larvae, if that gets into the box, that's another particular pest that's dealt with. House sparrow, you can see, has different eggs, different nests, the male and female. So we try to recognize those, and you can see how a house sparrow can fill up a whole box. It's a really different nest. I have not noticed house sparrows being a problem at Hagermen at all, but I've only been monitoring 2 years. They tend, from what I hear, Wayne, you may corroborate, closer to the facilities, buildings, etc. And so we're not seeing those out on the trail. I haven't. Wayne, have you seen many sparrows out on the trail at all?
House sparrows, no.
Yeah.
They really prefer to be near buildings.
Got it. Anyway.
Well, and Paige is asking about cowbirds parasitizing the bluebird nest, and if you see a cowbird egg, do y'all remove it?
I haven't ever seen a cowbird egg, and we don't monitor those, but Wayne, you want to chime in on that?
By having that 1.5 inch opening, the cowbirds can't get in there.
There you go. Exactly. And these little birds, house sparrows, titmouse, chickadees, wrens can. And of course, I have wrens nesting in my flower boxes all the time here at home, and it's wonderful. They're right by the window. It's kind of cool to look at. Anyway.
John, another point to be made here. There is another bird that presents a problem, particularly when talking about the size of the entrance, and that's woodpeckers.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
We have found woodpeckers to try to peck out the hole to make it so they can get in.
Yes.
To that end, we have often put metal guards around the hole itself to keep that from happening.
Yes, we have. The metal guard, I think I have a picture of that. And it's just a flat piece of metal that fits over the hole that certainly disables the woodpecker's peck. And anyway, I will tell you, these two particular pests are what our major problem is at Hagermen: the wasps and the mud dauber nests. What else I have seen this year or past year was the honeybees took over a box. Okay. And these mud daubers are prolific on the insides of these boxes. And getting that mud dauber nest cleaned out takes a metal blade that Anybody that's got mud daubers in Texas knows what I'm talking about. And I've got a bunch of them here at the house. Wasps, usually it's a very small nest because we're monitoring every week. We can usually clean it out. You know, I rarely see a wasp nest this big. And so I get a little pole and just rake it out. And I'm not allergic to the sting, so it hurts, but you know, anyway. Then we use ivory soap on the ceilings of these boxes to deter wasps and mud daubers. Supposedly, the ivory soap puts a slick surface, and they find that hard to adhere a nest to that. I suppose any soap is okay, but ivory soap seems to be kind of pure anyway. It does a fair job. We just get attacked by mud daubers no matter what, because they can build on the sides of the box, the inside of the box I'm talking about, build on the inside, ceilings, etc. Wasps I've seen mostly on the ceilings of the box. Or another dangerous area is that predator guard I was talking about. And they go inside that predator guard and build a nest at the ceiling of that predator guard. And of course, we can't see those. And so I have the habit of banging on the predator guard before I get too close. If I see any wasp insect flying, just bang, you know, I want to know if there's a wasp inside that predator guard, and then we'll leave it alone or try and get it out somehow. That's a problem, continuing, both of them. And here's our monitor functions. Baffles come in a lot of different flavors. It's critical to get a predator guard somehow. Any of these crawling animals, climbing animals, can be a problem. Here's some of the issues: raccoons, squirrels, cats, snakes. This snake's on a tree, but I've encountered one snake only on one box, and it went right up one of the pole, had a 4x4 wooden pole. So that snake found its way right up inside the predator guard. The reason I know that is because I found his snake skin still attached under the predator guard. And then a week later, I saw the snake at the base of the pole. And it was a little rat snake. No, nothing harmful to me, but certainly they do like bird eggs, okay? And birds, I suppose. Okay, squirrels. Well, like I say, causes the most bluebird deaths. We've talked about it: exposure, freeze, or heat wave. Freeze is pretty rare at Hagermen. I mean, a hard freeze. They can take the cold weather. That's not a problem, I don't think. 32 degrees or something like that. But the heat wave, that's the reason our box count tends to go down a lot. In fact, last year and the year before, maybe 3 boxes had action in August on the whole trails. And I say 3, I'm just putting that out there. Just not much. The heat is intense in North Texas in August, obviously. All the other predators are possible. Hawks, adults, fight with another bird. They're territorial, as we said. Certainly, one bird can bring down another bird. Vehicle collision, pesticides. We don't do pesticides at Hagermen, so that's a good thing. And moving on to the keys to successful nest boxing. We've talked about these: habitat, the box placement, the correct size box and opening, predator guards, keep ants from accessing, monitor weekly so that you find the problems early and then take care of them. Don't use pesticides in your yard. Insects can be contaminated with pesticides, and then birds eat the insects. Not a good thing. Provide plants. Here's some. Yes, Alan.
Hey, John, talking about the nest boxes and how to place them. Becky a while back asked about how far apart do the nest boxes need to be?
That's a good question. I've heard 100 to 300 feet, something like that. Wayne, what do you think?
I usually see a minimum of 50 feet because they are territorial and they will fight each other if they get too close.
Right?
But in some areas, especially areas where there are tree swallows who are competing for those nest cavities,
Right.
they'll actually tell you to put 2 nest boxes on the same pole facing opposite directions. The bluebirds will take one, the tree swallows will take the other, and then they don't fight.
Huh, interesting. But
Well, and along that same line, Larry Vargas was asking, is there a preferred direction in terms of the entrance? Do you want it to be north, south, east, west?
typically, I've been instructed to face them to the east because we have the prevailing westerly winds that get rather strong. And that typically keeps the colder air out, as well as help the box stay stable on the pole. Anything to add on that, Wayne?
I agree with John, and we have always tried to orient them to the east, northeast.
Right.
As I understand it, not so much because the bluebirds want it that way, but because it makes it easier. The sun shines in earlier if they're faced that way, etc.
The heat.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead, Wayne.
If your opening is to the east, it catches the morning sun. It helps warm the box from the cold overnight. And then as the sun is going down in the west, it's not shining into the box. It's bouncing off the wooden balls. So it keeps it from overheating.
Excellent. Yep. Both points well made. Yep.
One other quick question from
Sure.
Beverly, asking about the predator guards as to whether they ought to be fixed or swinging on the pole.
Swinging is okay. Fixed is okay. You just need them on there. Make sure they're steady and don't fall off, whatever your predator guard is. Typically, we put a clamp on the pole and hang the predator guard to the from the top of the pole, bring it down to the clamp that's on the pole, and it moves. The wind will move it, but it typically does the job. And I've seen other predator guards fabricated out of PVC, a 5-inch, 6-inch PVC also.
John, almost all our predator guards out there, except I can think of one exception, are swinging, which there's a side benefit to that, and that is it makes it easier to apply the tanglefoot when the time comes.
Yeah.
Which by itself is a nasty operation anyway.
Yeah.
And if you don't have to battle the predator guard while you're doing it, it's easier.
And you do have to leave room between the box and the predator guard so that you can move the predator guard up the pole, apply the tanglefoot, bring the predator guard back down to cover it up. That's typically the procedure there. Hope that answers that question.
Yeah, there was, when we were talking about the wasp, somebody, Sue, was saying that liquid Dawn soap on the top of the box too also deters the wasp and the mud daubers.
I have heard that also, and can't disagree with that.
And Venus.
We've never used anything other than ivory soap, thinking that ivory is as inert a soap as you can find.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Venus is also saying that she'd heard that wasp, mud dauber, spiders don't like to nest on sky blue painted surface, and wondered if we could paint the top of the boxes sky blue to deter them.
Well, let me tell you, I'm almost a mud dauber expert because of my carport that's open. I don't think there's any color that deters them. It's simply the surface material. If they can stick that mud to it,
They're going to use it.
I use them. Now, hey, that's just my opinion. Okay.
Well, and Derek posted, and I reposted that there are some bluebird nest box kits available from the Nature Nook.
Yeah,
And,
is Derek online yet? Derek Miller?
he is, and he's got his contact information there in the chat for
Okay.
those that might be interested.
Very good. That's what I was going to say. We're about out of time here. It's 11 o'clock. I'm going to rifle through just a few of these mealworms. I have had a little bit of, I don't really use mealworms until I see, and on my place, we don't use any mealworms out at Hagermen. They got plenty of food. But on my place, I found that a little tray of mealworms somewhere near the box was helpful after the babies have hatched and they're feeding. I don't put it out for all the other birds because that gets expensive. So, but these aren't that much either. And there's a couple of places here where you can buy them. You can get them at Lowe's also, same stuff. It's I found that that gives them enough food for the incubating and the hatching of new babies. It seemed to help. You can see the birds. Go get a meal. Dried mealworms, you can get live ones as well. Dried are just easier for me. So we've talked about boxes, references. There's my email and Kathy Van Bebber Adopt-A-Box email. Guys, that's about all I've got. Amazing. We went through all those slides and we answered several questions. Any other questions that we need to handle right now, Alan?
Robert says it's a great presentation, and somebody earlier was commenting on the great pictures in here. So I'm not seeing any additional questions. If
Okay.
other folks have questions, so they want to unmute and chime in, they're more than willing.
I will say again, our adopters, box adopters, thank you, thank you. We have got money to spend to rehab these boxes and poles, and they've been needed. They're 10, 11 years old. We really appreciate that. Yes, go ahead.
Becky is asking, how often do you apply that Tanglefoot, or is that more of a one-time?
Good question. One-time application per year. I go back to all the poles. We put one application on, typically when it warms up and the ants are starting to move, okay? But right there, beginning of March, I found that it starts to be needed. We get warm in March a lot of years, and here come the ants to the surface. Yeah.
What happens in the off time, so to speak, over the fall and winter is that the application you did last year dries up and cracks and is no longer effective. So we replenish, generally speaking, in the same place we put it last year.
Yeah. And that's once a year, so usually does the job. Like I say, the ants or fire ants are primarily dangerous to our monitors stepping on the mounds. Anyway, we keep maintenance. I'd say we keep maintenance and mowing pretty well. We've got Bert's on the mowing crew, Larry Vargas, myself, several others, Derek. We keep those areas around the boxes mowed well down so that we keep grass from growing on a pole, which allows an ant to climb to the pole. We keep them in pretty good shape over that area around the pole, and I think it's very helpful. Go ahead.
I have a question. So, how old, can the bluebirds live, and how late can they brood?
How long can they live?
Yeah.
Data I saw was 6 to 8 years. Wayne, is that about right?
Yeah, that's probably about right. As you said, almost half of the fledglings will die before their first year, but after that, maybe 20% every year. So 5, 6, 7, 8 years is certainly possible. I don't know what the record is. There's probably a record in excess of 13 years. That tends to be true for birds that size.
Okay, and
I read a
how late
stat
can they brood?
once
Sorry.
that the oldest living bluebird was 13 years of record.
Hey, I guess right.
There you go. Well, listen, I think we're about ending. I've put the references on here. These 4 websites are awesome for any future questions. I recommend the Cornell Lab, obviously, and there's all kinds of information, a lot of it on this presentation, but if you need more research, these 4 websites are excellent. And of course, all of us in Texas, there's some very significant info on the Texas Bluebird Society website. I like them a lot. With that, Alan, I think we're finished. And thanks to all who have attended. How many did we end up with?
Well, we had 73 on, I guess, at the high water mark, and we will get these references posted along with the link to be able to rewatch this video. Or anybody that missed it can go out to our website and it will be posted here in the next week or so. And I'm sure Patricia can get a copy of your reference information there where we can post that along with the video as well, so people have access to that.
Excellent idea. And there's my email and my wife's email. Don't hesitate to ask a question there. Appreciate
All right.
it.
Thank you very much, John, and we will go ahead and stop the meeting at this point. Appreciate everybody attending today.
Thanks a lot, Alan, for doing that.
You bet.